going back and forth about leadership. Because
Mhm.
I can explain to you, like with I'll say this as because we're like up now with the Clintons in 1988, after Reverend's presidential run, he shocked everyone by finishing as a top tier candidate
Yeah.
in 1984. So the DLC was formed, and the Clintons were part of the founding of that. They were the right wing of the party. We came across their founding document, and someone brought us a fax when we were at the convention in 1984. I'm writing about it, in fact.
Mhm.
And they said that it was Chuck Ropp, Sam Nunn, the big guns, the big guns who were the right wing of the party.
Yeah.
Uh, Al Gore, Bill Clinton, and they said that they were forming to counteract the impact of Jesse Jackson and the impact of the 2.5 million voters that he brought into the
Yeah.
party.
Yeah.
And so what they did, they said, and if they're not successful in 4 years, they were going to leave the party and be Republicans.
Yeah.
So they sent Al Gore after Reverend, and of course, being the son of the South, he was supposed to be the candidate,
Yeah.
and he was supposed to beat Reverend. And they set up Super Tuesday to wipe Reverend out.
Yeah.
The thing is, Reverend wiped him out because he finished first or second in every single state.
Mhm.
So there was that.
Yeah.
So, and at the end, it was just Reverend and Dukakis, because when they decided that they were not going to have him, they, slowed down the machines and all of this. So they
Yeah.
sent Bill Clinton, fully expected to run against Reverend in '92,
Yeah.
because Reverend by that time was the front runner, and Reverend decided pretty late in the process that he was not going to run.
Mhm.
And I must say, our family didn't want him to run. We were like, we'd seen enough. Like, we've made our point. We can't go any further with this, because there are things that we know now. We're not going to, this
Yeah.
is not going to work. So Bill Clinton came after us with all of his might. And because he had so much black support, because of his personality,
Yeah.
we had to figure it out.
Mhm.
Okay. It's just like Obama's politics to the right of ours. We had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it was like Reverend had to make some decisions. Are we going to get more with him, or are we going to get more with Bush?
Mhm.
Am I going to have to take a lot of hits, which we took during the primary, and we took once he got in? The welfare reform and all the stuff that he came up with, NAFTA, we
Yeah.
opposed all of that.
People forget. I still feel like Robert Reich has not done his penance for the fact that he was the labor secretary under this. I mean,
I'm, I'm,
and
I'm
the funny thing is, Greg Palast's sister was actually one of the under secretaries of
secretaries.
labor.
Look, that's why I'm saying we
Yeah.
had to figure a
Yeah.
lot of things out while you are working with your people
Yeah.
who are in love with someone who's putting and acting policies that are not helpful.
Yeah.
So we've always had to figure out how, as my father would say, how to survive the tsunami.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, my first album was produced by who? Orrin Hatch.
Oh, God.
I learned so much
Yeah.
because where they do the soundtracks, they do them in Utah. But
Oh,
that's
okay.
sure, I'll tell you about that. So we're gonna come up now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you. Been with you all day.
Yeah.
That's right, with Zach Roberts, brilliant photojournalist. And of course, he has been the production partner of Greg Palast, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, Vigilantes Inc., America's New Voter Hitmen. And of course, one of the most acclaimed photojournalists of our generation. These iconic photographs that we got out of Charlottesville, well, Time said these are some of the best photographs of the year. So, like, we got persons of the year, we got photographs of the year, and he was that guy. And so Status Quo News said, okay, we need all hands on deck. We got to get Zach, who is this brilliant journalist, who is also a fearless journalist, because he knew he was walking into a very difficult situation,
Hmm.
because when you start killing people, and when you start killing, I must say, when you start killing white people,
Yeah.
it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And so let's just keep it 100. Let's keep it right where it is. Not that any life is more precious than others, but it's like Viola Liuzzo in Selma and Reverend James Reeb in Selma. Everything did change. Jimmy Lee Jackson, yeah, he started everything off. There's no question. Black World War II veteran. Yes, yes, yes. And that was awful because that prompted Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, that prompted all these marches. But when you saw white people putting it on the line and losing everything, when you saw the execution of Alex Pretty, when you saw the execution of Renee Good, it's when you saw the execution of George Floyd, when you see someone dying in front of you,
Yeah.
it is it's too much. It's been overwhelming. And so people in Minnesota got out and started marching
Mhm.
and guarding the neighborhoods. I'm going to have Zach just give us the background, but all of that has been a game changer. And so border czar Tom Homan was sent in by the president to quell the unrest,
Mhm.
because the unrest started spreading across the country. And he said, okay, we're going to have a drawdown. The people of Minnesota said, that's not enough. You've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, so he announced that Operation Metro Surge is over. Like the Midway Blitz here in Chicago, well, they're still here in Chicago and they're still in Minneapolis. And they're in the greater Minneapolis area. And so let's talk about that. What does that mean? Because we are in the election season, Zach Roberts,
Mhm.
and there is a whole lot that is going on. So everybody, I want you to meet Zach. Zach is on Substack, on all the social media platforms. I think we're both on Upscrolls now,
Yep. Yep.
right?
I'm going
So
to be posting my first video there today. So yeah.
okay, well, maybe you got to show me so I can post this, because,
Yeah. Once I figure that out myself. So,
well, because I'm like, really, because
yeah.
that is another space where we are going, like Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Upscrolled gives us the space to tell the whole story.
Yeah.
And we'll get into a lot of things, even Epstein, because so many people feel that so much of the chaos is an attempt to obscure that story that means so much to so many people. A lot of things are at play right now. So let's get to it. Zach Roberts, you went to Minneapolis, came back, and then you sent me a text. You're like, I'm back. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us, for those of us who have not been there,
Mhm.
what is it like?
It's cold. No,
No,
it is.
no.
I mean, I love Minneapolis. I've got friends, lifelong friends that live there that I grew up with that decided to move there and make their life there. It's Minneapolis is a fantastic place, and Minnesota is fantastic as well. It's, um, I think it's in a way that Alaska used to be a progressive place
Mm,
because kind of by its nature, by the fact that if you're driving down the road and you see somebody broke down, you have to pull over or else they're going to die. They're going to
mm,
die of exposure. And so the community, the way that community works in that state is, I think, really built in that. And obviously there's like a long labor history. The DFL there is not the Democratic Party. It's the labor. It has a labor connection in a real way, a way that like Wisconsin used to, that certain governors got forced the heck out of. But it's truly a great place because the community over terror after terror that they've like the George Floyd killing and the protests and kind of the troops that came in to supposedly knock down the protest, which in my experience they just shot a lot of journalists, blinded a couple, and attacked people regularly for that, just protesting in the streets. But they have gone through a lot, and I think that they've learned how to organize and learn
mhm,
that we talk about community, and it's not just pride for your city or pride for whatever. You're talking about like pride for the 6 blocks around you, and knowing the people that live in your neighborhood, not in a kind of next door app kind of way where it's just like, oh, that person doesn't take out their trash, in a like, what do they need, in a in a real mutual aid. Like when we talk about Antifa, when we talk about that dirty word, or that terrorist organization, now what most of the people that I know that do anti-fascist activity, Antifa, they're doing mutual aid. They're running soup kitchens, or they're going to their community board meetings and writing down and taking notes so that people who can't go to the meeting that happens at 9 o'clock in the morning or noon or whatever,
Well,
they know what's
sounds third world. It sounds global south.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I think. That's the rub.
Yeah.
I think if it sounded British, if
Yeah.
it were anglicized, people, they wouldn't be able to fight folks so much. Right?
I mean, it's they're. I think they want to make it sound. I don't know too many people that are anti-fascist that call themselves Antifa, other than literally like as a joke. It's just like, yes, I'm that dangerous Antifa. They're anti-fascist, which I would hope that if you're American,
Antifa, Latifa. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's
no, 100%. But I mean, I think that like all of that is part of trying to, like, the way that so much of the media brands the left, the protesters and the activists who, like, really, people who aren't, again, like the people in Minneapolis, so many of them aren't what I would say activists. It's not a full-time thing. It's not how they define themselves. I know a lot of activists, that's how they define themselves. This is what they do. They may have another job, but like they are defined by the fact that they are committed, that they, spend their free time or they spend their paid time, whatever, as activists, whether they're part of nonprofits, whether they're part of, community groups or whatever. That's how they define them. Most of the people I've talked to, they, either call themselves like commuters, which is, the people that follow around ICE and just kind of keep an eye on and make sure and warn people in the neighborhood by beeping horns or by blowing whistles, or they're at their home and they're kind of, double checking license plates that people that are commuters send in and be like, hey, there's a Chevy, there's an Expedition with this license plate. It's got all tinted out windows. I think that one of the people in the front seat has a mask on. So, can we check this license plate to see if it's been, cleared as just a, whatever car, or as a former or current ICE vehicle that that they're using this car to do their, kidnappings and their kind of like, general terror that they do around the city, of just like honestly just driving around, with so much of what they do is they just basically like sit in an area, often don't do anything, run their car and kind of get people to worry, which is correct to worry, but like get people to be concerned about this car. And then in some other neighborhood, they're doing an activity or something like that. It's a distraction kind of tactic. But that's what anti-fascist activity really looks like, is like just the kind of so boring, running a database, running an Airtable and like checking license plate, doing things and keeping like a database about, oh, this car has been used for ICE, or they're on this street corner or whatever. It is not, burning down police stations or things like that. It is literally just, doing, making, or, the big thing that I was talking, literally just editing an interview with a woman that was singing at a Target last week as a part of a protest against Target's the retail chain, their kind of complicity with the Trump administration and ICE. And she was telling me that she does mutual aid for 3 different immigrant families, so that when they don't feel comfortable going out to go get food or whatever, that she brings the food to them. And sometimes she'll drive their kid to elementary school or school. And so like that's what the community activism is really looking like there. It's nothing fun. It's not Earth First activities or anything like that, of like putting down nails to make sure that the cars get flat tires or anything like that. It's literally just like, this is what like 99.9% of anti-fascist activities look like, is like making sure that your neighbor who's terrified by the men in masks, their kid gets to go to school and can kind of continue on their their and life as normal as they possibly can, while we're in a, what is never been more clear that we're in a police state currently, and especially in Minneapolis, but all across the country we are.
Well, what do you see block by block? I mean, what does the city feel like? Because I've seen videos
Hmm.
of people there who are standing guard
Yeah.
on their block. I mean, is that happening?
It's yeah. I mean, you go through a lot of, some neighborhoods have less people, some neighborhoods have more people. But it's literally just people, dressed in like, winter gear because they're out there
Mhm.
for hours. You can usually notice who they are by the orange whistle, or usually so many of them are orange whistles. I don't know why, hanging around their neck. And, they're kind of, we as when I was there working as press, just by the nature of like, we have like 4 journalists in a car saving money and kind of, saving energy. And we are usually in like black tinted out, SUVs. And so we look suspicious. We look like we're in ICE cars. And sometimes ICE will rent cars and tint the windows, as far as we can tell, because all these cars don't have, you don't rent a car that usually has all 4
Mhm.
windows heavily tinted, but we rent a car and then suddenly these cars have, like, you go to like Avis or something like that, and they have 4 fully tinted blacked out tinted windows, which are illegal in most states. And so there's no way that a car rental agency would have this. So they're doing this, as far as we can tell, that they're spending the money to when they rent these cars from, Avis, or I'm just naming one company,
Mhm.
Enterprise, whatever. And so we're driving around, and so we roll down our windows and kind of, flash our press badges, and sometimes talk to people. Like, they're so helpful. You're like, oh, have you spotted ICE? Have you whatever? And they'll tell us, like, oh, there's a car over there, or whatever, because so many of them want the attention on these vehicles and what they're doing, and what these vehicles are doing in neighborhoods, which is just literally sitting in often a neighborhood that has a higher immigration, immigrant kind of neighborhood, a neighborhood with people of color. Let's just say they're not Canadian immigrants that they're tracking. And
But they
and
were in Renee Good's neighborhood.
well, that was a neighborhood. It's um kind of a mixed neighborhood,
Hmm.
that she was killed in. And so, I mean, it's just like any, I hate to say, like an immigrant neighborhood. We're like, it's,
Hmm.
it's kind of, Minneapolis is pretty, in the areas that they've been in my experience, I could be wrong. If there's many,
Hmm.
somebody from Minneapolis that can correct me, it seemed like a very, a mixed community, and it's
Hmm.
not like divided, I mean, not many communities are these days, but it's a lower middle working class kind of neighborhoods. And so they're going to be in neighborhoods, wherever, because there's like a high rental. Like, I live in Norfolk, and there's it's a historically Black neighborhood, but there's like a mix. There's a lot of house rentals and stuff like that. So you have like a lot of immigrants here. You have a lot of military people here. It's very similar in the neighborhoods that we were kind of following ICE around in Minneapolis. They're not that often in, the higher, in the more suburbs, where the, kind of wealthier, people, like, just like Chicago. Like, you're
Hmm.
not going to see ICE around, in I don't know.
Lincoln Park.
Yeah, there you
Gold
go.
Coast.
I was like, I don't know Chicago well. I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend that I know.
Oh, just
So
say the Gold Coast. That
yeah,
works
there
for
you
me.
go. Yeah, you're not going to see them
Um,
tracking around there. So
so I understand that they're still there,
yeah,
that they have not left.
yeah,
What does that look like?
yeah.
Because we've been told that they are gone.
So
And yet, Wired magazine said, not so fast. There's a surge all over the country.
mhm.
Wow.
I've never understood why, for what they do and what I've seen them do, and when I talk to the people that have been on the ground there, whether they be journalists or whether they be the, commuters, the activists, or whatever, that are kind of paying attention to all this and tracking this, I don't understand why they think they need 3,000 or 2,000 even. Like, 500 would be more than enough for the activities that they do, because they're just constantly rolling, and they'll be focused in a couple other ways around. they'll, so I mean, like, they don't need this many people. They have other federal agents, they have Bureau of Prisons, they have ATF around, they have other federal troops. And so they can literally just, for processing and things like that, they ICE agents can be out in the street. And so you only need a small amount. You don't need that 3,000. The 3,000 is like a big number. I think for the media, we never saw 3,000 agents out at any given time. I would say maybe 200 ops are out in the streets at even at the height. And again, I could be wrong. Could be wrong if people on the ground, know about like a larger number than that. In my experience, when I was down there, we never saw more than like two or three cars. Other than Bovino, when I was going to call him General Bovino. Bovino was on the ground. He would have his little caravan drive press and commuters around the city in kind of chasing them and kind of following what they do. And they would jump out of the car, yell at us for following them, and then go back in the car and drive 60 down a 30-mile-per-hour suburban neighborhood and things like that, like drive dangerously. And so I'm not happy that, or I'm not like, comforted by the fact that, hundreds of them are supposedly are leaving. But because I don't think if they want it to, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. Like, I think they really only need a couple hundred people on the ground there. And I think that they can do the same thing. I think they also realize that, like, they need to leave Minneapolis because it's organized, and they can move to, there's organized, and there's just, the high enough population and the way that the city is set up that they can't do what they need to do. They can go to Springfield, Ohio. They can go to Columbus. They can go to, Norfolk, Virginia. They're here, like, or Virginia Beach or whatever, where there's just not the like level of activism and kind of built-in organization, and also just the large number of population of people that would care about this. And so, like, I think that they're going to move. They could put 100 troops, 100 ICE agents. I don't want to give anyone ideas, but like they could end in Hampton Roads and be way more effective than having 500 in Minneapolis, because just the organizational network isn't there of normal people who, I want to always emphasize, that aren't being paid. They get no big funding, and there's no, I saw no evidence whatsoever of any of the large, like, nonprofits or George Soros funded nonprofits that are like out of DC or stuff like that are doing a damn thing. ACLU is doing lawsuits. That's good. But like organizing anything on the ground, no, it's just random people. It's just people who know how to do this. And, they're really good at Excel. And so like, this is their skill that they can do and kind of run databases on ICE license plates and kind of identifiers and things like that.
Well, do you think the sheer numbers of ICE agents, it is like a psychological operation? I mean, it's designed to crack the spiritual spine of the city. I mean, that's what because they overwhelm you. I mean, they're like 600 police officers in Minneapolis. It's 5 to 1.
Well, I mean, I think that, they love Jacob Fry, the mayor, loves to say that, where it's like, oh, they couldn't do anything if they wanted to, like they couldn't have direct the police officers to defend the city from the 3,000 is 5 to 1. The problem is that the state and local police are working hand in hand every single day, especially the county sheriffs, the Hennepin County sheriffs are working hand in hand with ICE. Even if,
what do you mean?
As in literally hand in hand, like as in they're driving along with them in cars, making sure, protecting ICE from protesters. They're beating and arresting people. Just on the last weekend, was 8 days ago, there was a protest at the Whipple Federal Building, and there was Hennepin County sheriff's officers, there was conservation officers, like state conservation officers, and there was state troopers. And I think at least one other agency was, state level agency was on the ground, and they're the ones that arrested the protesters who were running away from them and threw them on the ground. I have video of it. You can go to any of my social medias and see it, or you can see anything on when there was a sex toy protest where they had basically joking. I don't know if I can say the
sex toys.
Yeah, sex toys. They brought sex toys out and like were putting them on police cars and kind of like making fun and throwing them out in the street and things like that. And that's what they did. And then they responded by arresting about 50 or 60 people, including legal observers, and literally throwing them down to the ground. I have a photo. If you go to visu.news, visu.news, you can see it's one of the I think second to last story that I did, that photo of people bleeding from the head. And like knee on the back kind of thing. I mean, just aggressive with no reason, and tear gassing and pepper spraying and that sort of thing as well. And so it's just like, that's what the state and local police are doing. I don't know if Governor Walz and Mayor Fry are directing them to do this, or they're just not listening to them, or they're just kind of step back, which is what I believe they've done, is they've kind of thrown up their hands. Mayor Walz is on his way out. Jacob Fry, I don't think, is ever going to be elected to a dog catcher after this, because
Why?
everyone knows that his FU to ICE, get out of the city, is completely backed by absolutely nothing, and that none of the Democratic higher ups, that a mayor or governor, I'm sure there's others that do have a spine. Omar, Congresswoman Omar, she has a spine. She will, she's been doing things and she's been working, but the governor and the mayor of Minneapolis don't have a spine to find, amongst, more than three vertebrae between the two of them to do a damn thing. I mean, they'll talk and talk, and then they'll bend the knee any time that the federal government comes in. And I don't know if that's because they made up all these investigations and stuff like that, and all these claims, or what they have on them, or what the point is, or they just never actually believe it in general. I mean, we were talking the last time we chatted, kind of about how the Democratic Party establishment. I mean, with this new video where the Hillary Clinton is quite proud of the fact that ICE did their job during the Obama administration. And was way more effective than Donald Trump, and just didn't kill any American citizens, which I guess that's the line. It's perfectly fine to kill, immigrants or whatever, which is something the Border Patrol has regularly done over its entire history, 100-year history. But otherwise, they don't seem to give a damn about that, which is a huge frustration for my part. Not that I'm a person that cares about either party, but I'm a journalist. But it frustrates me, the hypocrisy of it. So,
well, I mean, but it has become. Well, you've got the Democrats and the Republicans, the elected leadership, who are making hay of this. But I get the sense that on the ground, this is not seen as a partisan issue. Okay, please explain, because as I'm listening to people, as I'm talking to people,
the people on the ground don't. I think they've realized that neither party is going to help them. The whole mantra always is, who protects us, we protect us. And because they know that no one's coming to save them. Okay. And which I think there's like a deep level of sadness living in a democracy, or even a republic, that the government that they voted for, the people that they thought would at least, have their back, are nowhere to be found, and are in fact helping other people. So I think that when I talk to people, they don't really want to talk about politicians. And I don't think it necessarily has to do with that they don't want to have the conversation of the uncomfortable, like they're supposed to like Democrats because they're people that care about, have human empathy and care about immigrants. I don't think it's that. I think it's just that they don't find them relevant in the conversation, which I think should scare the heck out of anybody who wants to get elected in America, is if you think that you're irrelevant and that your people who should be your base aren't going to turn out and vote, which I think that these people will, they'll vote blue, whatever, whoever wins, because they don't want the other option. I mean, all of this started because a Republican in Minneapolis, elected a Republican in Minnesota, asked Nick Shirley to come in and investigate. I'm making air quotes for people just listening. Investigate the Sabali businesses and the supposed corruption that's happening, with the daycare schools and something like that. And so, like, it all started out of this is all, as most of these things are always, it's a Republican op. And so that's how we got there. They're certainly not happy with Republicans, and they're certainly not happy with Democrats, who, aren't really showing up. I mean, even Keith Ellison, who at least showed up to the attorney general there, even at least showed up to Whipple one day to be interviewed and talk about things. We don't know. I mean, they just don't know where they are. And so, yeah, the conversation really isn't, when I try to get people to talk about it, they kind of go, I don't care. You know, I don't care what they do. We're doing this now and we're taking care of ourselves. And that's not good for democracy. You know, I mean, that's not good for kind of the future of America if people are, you know, within like a 30 block area being like, the only thing I care about is these, you know, this, because this is all I can handle. The people that should be theoretically handling more than that, our governors and our Congress people and our, you know, mayors, they're not doing anything to help us. So I don't know what we do, you know.
Well,
we focus on what we can.
Well, and do you think that people are inclined there to come up with something new? And I'm asking that because you've seen the Gallup poll that says that the overwhelming majority of Americans are dissatisfied with the country right now. And young people, they look at both parties and they've pushed back. They're independent. I mean, I'm wondering if, I guess, you know me, I'm always looking for a little bit of daylight. And I think I see it. I don't think it's a train coming my way. I think it is like daylight. That people are looking, they're saying, you know, my father would often say, no one will save us for us but us.
Yeah.
And that was like, wait a minute, I'll use whatever parties are in place, but maybe I'll come up with something else. Because remember, they're a little independent too. They have the DFL, not the Democratic Party per se.
Yeah.
You know, so Minnesotans are far more independent minded. And I'm thinking that more and more Americans are more independent minded. I mean, when you see people standing guard, I mean, where do they go from here, Zach? I mean, because it just seems like you know, before you came on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson this morning, which is my nationally syndicated show on iHeart, something I've been writing and producing for Reverend since 2004. We had a young woman from my AM 950 radio family who said, look, first of all, ICE, they're still here.
Yeah.
She said, but they're farther out. They're not in the city as much as they are now out in the hinterlands, which is where the farms and the farms and the farm workers are. She said, so make no mistake, nothing has changed. And so, I mean, you're telling me, no, they're still there. So what was Tom Homan talking about?
I mean, he sees the polls just like everybody else does. He sees the numbers, or Trump does. I don't think Tom Homan could care. Reminder as a side note, Tom Homan is the border czar. He doesn't hold, he was never confirmed. He is unaccountable. As far as I understand, he's basically unfoyable as well. So like accountability coming out of this, you know, in 4 years and through 2 years or whatever, I have no idea how that works. And he's also a person who I can't get an answer from anyone that would know, is how does he have the ability to control federal officers? And which is something that, like, if anybody is is a lawyer or whatever that can answer this, because I've asked around quite a bit and I can't find anybody who has anything other than just they're allowed to, you know, they can. But I mean, like, I think that Congress should be asking, how can this person, because, you know, czars usually are just kind of like, oh, it's, you know, Larry Summers, who was in the Epstein files, was Obama's one of Obama's economic czars for a bit. And, you know, it was just it's an advisory position. I mean, that's the whole point. It wasn't like he was there, you know, signing legislation or like, you know, hiring people or firing people or anything like that. I think later on he got an actual position quickly, but it is with Holman is that I don't understand how that can work, other than, you know, people just, Trump is unaccountable and does whatever he wants. So I think that works. I can't imagine the outcry if Obama had done the exact same thing with even Tom Homan, who worked for him, you know, and so it would have been anyway, but what is coming out of Homan's speech, Homan's press conference is, it's just PR. I mean, it's just giving people the kind of the centrist population that are like, okay, we're watching this and seeing what's happening and what's coming out of there. They've killed 2 white people that looking, they shouldn't be killing white people. We don't really care about the other people, but enough that we care about 2 people who, this guy was a gun owner. The NRA came out and decried that they wanted an investigation and they wanted everything, which is insane. I've never seen that before. I've never seen the NRA come out when law enforcement of any kind shoots a gun carrier. It's just not something that usually happens.
Why do you think that happened? Do you think were they reacting to public pressure as well?
Well, first, I think that there's new people working at the NRA. That Wayne LaPierre is gone, thankfully for America. Actually, it might be NRA might become a more effective organization, unfortunately, because Wayne LaPierre cared more about expensive suits and planes than he cared about actually fighting for gun rights. I've worked on developed a documentary about the NRA for ages, and my uncle passed away, the co-founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. So unfortunately, I'm very cognizant of the corruption and who are of the NRA. And so, but I think that they see that there's a strain within the, I don't say positively or negatively, but a strain within the kind of the 2A, the Second Amendment world that is genuinely kind of in that libertarian way where it's just like, no, they genuinely do care and they just want to see more people have guns. And because it helps their rights if more people, if liberals or lefties and right-wing people have guns. So I think that it comes out of that where it's just like the NRA is kind of reading the room, that if they want to be kind of a continued important organization, they have to take stands like this. There's a lot of other gun organizations like the Virginia Defense League, VDLC, here in Virginia, that they take a much more strongly libertarian line. They're very conservative, they're very right wing, but they they would push back against Donald Trump when he did the bump stock ban back in his first administration. And so I think that we're seeing the gun lobby realizing that Trump isn't the big friend that they think is. They'll still endorse him because he's better than they'll definitely think that he's better than Kamala Harris or something. But when it comes to that, they might actually do some level of pushback. But I think that is, I think it's something that we can't ignore. The fact that there's a lot of people in the base that they may not care about Renee Good. But they certainly care about a illegal gun carrier being shot after his gun was removed from him and shot multiple times, because they all know they can say, well, he did everything right. And then Trump coming out and saying, or everybody in the administration basically saying, you should not bring a gun to a protest. That's wrong. That's illegal. That's whatever. Meanwhile, anybody who's watched the news over the last 10 years kind of remembers, remember that the Michigan State Capitol when everybody had AR-15s and other long arms, carrying it around the state capitol. Remember, any number of protests. I covered personally at least 4 or 5 different protests at the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania State Capitol, where people were openly carrying all sorts of weapons. And so covered in Ohio, literally I interviewed a guy that had a shirt on that says "I shoot and I vote," and he was carrying a sniper's rifle, like a huge sniper's rifle. So it's I think that honestly could have been why they're like, okay, we at least have to visually change. We have to make a statement and kind of move people out. Or at least make it look like people are being moved out to other cities. The other thing is too, it's if you want to be more effective, you drop 200 people in Columbus, Ohio, or something like that, and there's just there's not the organization, and there's not enough people. There's just
But effective doing what? Who are they getting?
It doesn't matter. They can claim, supposedly the criminal, because they're supposed to be focusing on, violent criminals, and supposedly the criminal rate is something like 8% out of the, 40,000, whatever.
They're not getting anyone. They've got this Seamus Culleton, who's this Irish national.
Yeah.
who lived here 20 years. He's been in detention 5 months. They got him on a driving violation.
Yeah.
And they put him away. And now, magically, after almost 5 months in detention, now, he actually he has there's a warrant for his arrest because he's a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Huh? Now, wait a minute. He's made mistakes like a lot of people have, but if were he a drug dealer, they would have caught that 20 years ago.
I mean,
What is this? I mean, he said, and we only hear about his story. His wife has been trying to get him home, but he called into an Irish radio station and said, "This is a concentration camp. This is not a detention center. These conditions are absolutely inhumane." And now they brought it up in the Irish Parliament. What are we doing?
Yep.
What good? I mean, and now, okay, so now, since they're not there, what do they expect Minnesota to do now?
I mean, here's the thing: is what I hope what Minnesota does, and I think that they will. Like, I have pure confidence is that they'll start teaching other people and take phone calls or whatever, people that were organizing in the ground and teaching other people how to do this, because so that, again, not to harp at Springfield, Ohio, which has a, large Haitian community. They've been mentioned multiple times that that's next on the target list of Trump's, goons. And so hopefully this people, the limited people of Springfield, Ohio that would stand up and have the time and the effort and, to be able to do this, hopefully they won't have to build, this kind of network from the ground up when they've, like they know how to do this in Minneapolis, and hopefully they'll be communicating how to do it. That's one of my plans. I'm going to start doing more interviews and kind of like talk to people about that I've made connections there, and try to talk to people about like, okay, so how do people do this? Like, how do people actually kind of organize? I mean, one of the problems is that the moment you tell people how to organize on a kind of an open channel, that then ICE listens to that. I mean, I know that I'm unfortunately on a list after reporting. I reported on stolen items out of a car back it was January 14th, and a whole lot of people wanted me investigated online about things, because I reported on a live stream things that were stolen out of a car, just basic information, and never took the items or anything like that. But like it was a big deal. But so I mean, like they're listening, but like I mean, I think we have to kind of make sure that the story of Minneapolis is told and kind of so that other people can learn.
What is the story of Minneapolis?
I mean, it's still ongoing. So, I mean, it's always hard. I don't want to ever say that, it's like, oh, well, it's moved on. So, I mean, like the story is, this is the conclusion.
But so far, because you were there, were you surprised by anything? What has been your takeaway, and what should be our takeaway from this? Because to me, it's rife with lessons. I mean, because Minneapolis is on the heels of Chicago. And Chicago pushed back hard. I mean, and our mayor, I have several friends who work for the city, and one very dear friend who works for the city in particular. And he said, "Oh, no. They're getting the trucks and they're blocking the exits on the expressway. So ICE can't get in."
Yeah.
I said, "Wait a minute, what?" So, but we had a mayor who is very, very, very supportive and active.
Yeah.
We have a governor. What's the difference between a Mayor Brandon Johnson and a J.B. Pritzker and Jacob Fry and Governor Walz?
I mean, that example is exactly like I witnessed when there was going to be supposed to be a large protest at the Federal Whipple building, which was the comparable to what you're talking about there in Chicago,
downtown. That's where City Hall, the federal building, but City Hall, wait a minute, everybody. In Chicago, nobody cares about the president. The mayor is the big cheese in Chicago. I mean, here in this part of the country, the mayor is the king or the queen. So help me.
No, so I mean, it was the complete opposite. We saw them move snow plows in front of the road, in front of the exits, and block the exits that protesters would get into, do a protest across the
Hmm.
street from the federal Whitfield building, that they put up the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and I guess I would assume other agencies put up not just barricades, not just like, the standard kind of metal barricades. They put up, trying to remember how tall they were. You can look at photos of like,
Hmm.
but they're like, 12 feet high fences around, with only, and exits and entrances. They use tear gas regularly, use pepper balls, attack protesters and journalists regularly that were there. And so I still, I don't have access to Mayor Fry or Governor Waltz. I still would love anyone to ask him, like, were you directing the law enforcement to do what they did, or do you not have control over your own police departments? And I think that so much of that, I think that's one of the reasons why you see Democratic elected mayors that you would expect to kind of take oh no, they're not going to be direct. They're going to at least separate and protect, the protesters and the residents of a city against, from ICE, maybe not against, but from
Hmm.
ICE attacking them. But I mean, we saw so often in so many different cities. In Los Angeles, it was unbelievable. I I have multiple friends who are journalists who are suing the city right now for
Hmm.
the LAPD's violent repression of protests that were happening there, and working hand in hand with ICE and DHS officers that were terrorizing that city, basically just for press. I mean, they really didn't do anything. They just did big, visuals with drones and had cameras and things like that to, use on their social media networks and to, make their right wing content providers happy. And I mean, that was, to me, so much of what happened in Minneapolis, is that you had local law enforcement, again, like, work hand in hand with ICE in a way that my understanding is that they should not have been able to, or should not have been doing, if they were directed. If you listen to what Fry and Waltz were saying, one would think you'd have the police at least not actively attacking. Like, I could see, them preventing from doing other things to ICE or something like that. But I mean, the number of times that I witnessed a car that was run off the road, a law enforcement officer from Minneapolis drive by and then speed away to avoid ICE, to avoid what was happening in front of their own eyes. Um, Multiple times. They were actively avoiding to be in the same neighborhood as ICE, so that they could not have to basically deal with the journalists and the community members that were screaming, we're like, will you do something? And so I think that one of the things is that, like I said at the start of the show, is that I think that the biggest takeaway that everybody should take away from Minneapolis, again, that is still ongoing, is that what did the Reverend say?
Nobody will save us for us but us.
There you go. I mean, that's what I think that everybody has to realize, is that your law enforcement, as good as you think that they are, your local mayor and elected officials, I think that it's going to be, within the next year, I think there's going to be a real conversation about whether or not the mayor or the governor has any real power over law enforcement in this country. And we've
But you,
always known that they don't have any power over sheriffs, because they think they're their own elected,
yeah.
biblical driven thing. But, like, I'm talking about your average police, your average cop, that's the cop beat on
Okay.
the street. I don't think that the mayor in any major city in this country actually has power over it. We're going to see
Now,
that probably with Mamdani pretty quickly, whether he has the ability to control NYPD officers, and I'm highly doubtful. I hate to
but they're
say.
like the deep state. I mean, because we saw that a lot of people who were
Mhm.
involved in January 6th were local police
Yeah,
officers. So, I
yeah,
mean, that the police, I mean, Mayor de Blasio went into New York wanting all of these reforms, and he hit a wall. And we forget that the police they're the Secret Service for the mayor.
yeah.
So you kind of, it's not just you, it's your wife, your partner, your husband, it's your children
Yeah.
who you who you want to remain safe.
Yeah.
Let's put it right there.
Yeah.
Now, Nora Morningstar Okoneski, how you doing, Nora Morningstar? She said they are in a long, drawn out process of gradually drawing down. It looks like. Okay, I can accept that. If how, but how, Miss Nora Morningstar? How long do you think this is going to last? And John, Virgin said the last mayoral election, a very late endorsement of Fry by Waltz helped Fry get reelected over
Yeah.
Omar Fateh. That was a big deal.
Mhm.
But and remember, John, they took the nomination from Senator Fonte, because it's a caucus,
Yeah.
and he actually won the caucus. But then the powers that be took it from him. Huh. So what don't we? Before we go, I know we only have a few minutes left here, but what don't we know? What don't we know? And are you still going to be looking out at Minneapolis? Is this something that you're still going to cover? Is it something that we should still pay attention to?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I still have a bunch of journalist friends that are on the ground there. Status quo will probably always keep going back, whether or not I go back or whether I start focusing on. I mean, I go where the story is, and right now it's looking like the story is in a lot of smaller cities
Mm.
across the country, and so it's a matter of trying to figure out how. Again, at the end of the day, I'm a visual journalist, so I have to kind of have something to take photos of, and that's one of the kind of the difficult things we found. Like I was down there for 6 days last time, and I would say 2 out of the 6 days we just followed cars around, not waiting, but like seeing what could happen. And so I mean that's all about journalism, is that it's just like you can it's one way work with Greg Palast. We work on something for 6 months and you don't hear that much about
Mhm.
what's happening, and then boom, we drop the story. And so unfortunately, or fortunately, because it means that we didn't see anyone get kidnapped or anything like that, which is has good and bad from a journalist aspect, is that we didn't get to cover when it happens, but we didn't
Mhm.
also, it means that the ICE officers that we were tracking weren't doing anything. And so what we don't know is, I mean, the big thing is that I don't know how we get accountability out of this. And that's my big thing, is that, is talking about Tom Homan being basically an unaccountable non-appointment, like just person that kind of exists around and gets to make statements and kind of like acts as an extension of Donald Trump. And but so I don't know what is going to happen if let's say the Democrats win power, to have investigative powers, if they win Congress back and the Senate back. And I don't know if they'll be able, if is there documents that they can investigate. Are they doing mass burnings? Is this like when the a dictator is run out of power and they burn everything as they go, because
Mhm.
or they just delete files, because I mean mostly everything's just going to be digital for the most part. But like how do we investigate these people? How do we call accountability to the people that we don't, that we have photos of people being beaten, people being
Mhm.
kidnapped, people being arrested, whatever. And we don't know. We have maybe a badge, like a number that's on their chest, maybe sometimes. But we don't know what that number is attached to. And I frankly kind of doubt that it actually is attached to anything. I think that you can see photos of like Border Patrol officers that are in Minneapolis that have like a letter and a number series on the thing. And I'm not 100% sure that they're attached to anything. And I kind of doubt it. I think that it's something people can focus on, when you're just like, here's your badge number, and it's not, but there's no name, attached to that. That's just me being a paranoid, guy from decades of covering police and not trusting them as far as I could throw them.
Well, well, why don't you trust them as far as you can throw them?
I've got too many concussions from
Oh, wow.
police officers. I mean, I've seen what they do, and I've seen them lie. Like they lie like they breathe, gasping
Mhm.
and but no, but they by their nature, law enforcement is there to lie to you and to get you to admit what you did or didn't do, and make make it so that it makes there is any arrest, and they, the entire system of policing in this country is set up to make sure that there's no accountability for these people, because they have such incredible power over the American population, and the media has done nothing but propaganda for the last 60 years at least. Don't trust an agency that was birthed out of slave catching. That's that's my thing. Never mind the fact that like I have scars. I have PTSD from law enforcement. I've been covering the far right for nearly 15 years now, and I have no injuries from them. I do have it from cops though, so I don't trust them.
For your portion, John Virgin says, "Thank you for your dedicated courage," and I thank you for that.
Thank you, John.
Before we go, I do thank you, because when I came across you on my feed, I said, remember, I got in touch with you. I said, Zach, is that you? Ooh, oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, it made me anxious, I must say. But no, because I've been in this all my life, and I grew up losing people that I knew. Yeah. And I know that when you put yourself out there like that, that you might not come home. Yeah. I was reading an article. They were talking about, children of prominent people who were in school in Washington. And my brother, Jesse, was among the people that they interviewed. And you have this picture of him, and he was laughing, because he's really, as serious as his public persona is, he is one of the funniest people you will ever want to meet. He's a real cut up. But the caption was, you don't feel quite the same way about rebelling against your father if every time you see him, you think it'll be the last time you do. Yeah. And he talked about accompanying Daddy to the airport, and Dad went out of town every week. So oftentimes we'd ride with him to the airport after our Saturday morning meeting. Yeah. And he said, and I went into the bathroom and I cried, because I felt that by putting him on the plane, I might not see him again. And we always felt that way. Just every day. And so we do thank you for your courage. But this might be a little far flung, but I want to ask you this. A lot of people are wondering, when they look at this chaos, if this is a distraction to take our minds off of the Epstein file. I mean, and I have to tell you, when we mentioned them this morning on Keep Up Alive show, I was shocked that everybody went there.
Yeah.
And because apparently this case has penetrated so deeply.
Yeah.
You talk about not going anywhere. No. It just continues to get bigger. Do you think that some of this chaos is that?
I don't feel, because I was posting about this a minute ago. I mean, like, what if, just as a kind of an off, like, what if the Epstein files and it's being drawn out is actually a distraction of the mass kidnapping of children by ICE over the last year? I mean, what if Trump realizes that there's absolutely no accountability that will ever touch him, and that he can use this to build a mass conspiracy to distract 30% of the country and allow him to do everything that he's been doing. But everyone goes, every single time he does something or says something, it's a distraction from Epstein. I mean, I'm not, I'd never want to be the person that says to downplay what this is, and the unbelievably large reach that every single day it feels like there's a new, like, oh, it's Noam Chomsky is in this. Oh, Larry Summers in this. Not surprised. But, on the number of people in the photos, and like the basically how far reaching on the centrist left and right it is, and the connections. I mean, the things we're learning about Steve Bannon being involved in these connections that Steve Bannon talked to. I was just reading that Steve Bannon talked to Epstein about creating a media network that would basically do exactly what the War Room Steve Bannon show does. And the level of like unbelievable power and connections that this guy had is, I think, more of like a bounce that people are going to be doing other things. And he's like the guy that could make those connections, because he had, again, this is, I mean, we're talking about a dead man, so I don't think it's not libelous, but it's, he's a guy that had, was able to use photos, video, whatever information as kind of, blackmail against everyone else. And so he was able to get things done in a way that, no one else could. And, but yeah, I mean, my big thing is that if you can't focus on children being kidnapped in the streets of Minneapolis and sent to detention camps in Texas or somewhere else, then you should, and you can't focus, you have to focus on just that one thing, then you got to get on something. You got to maybe get some Adderall or something, or some, or, whatever, somewhat meds, because I think that we should be able to focus on more than one thing. And I think that the constant yelling and screaming online of like, this is a distraction. Every single time I post a story about anything, I immediately, there's like 2 people posting where like, this is a distraction from the Epstein files. And it's like, no, it's not. Unless you literally can only focus on one thing, it is not. I mean, we can focus on 2 things, at least I hope. I have ADHD, and I can still focus on, I can still know the fact that, that the SAVE Act is going to, and that Donald Trump is threatening to, somehow he doesn't have the power to be able to do it, but, somehow have voter ID across the country, which will basically mean that, they'll steal 5% of the vote across the board in states that don't have voter ID. And so it's, it's one of those, I like, please, everyone, let's be able to focus on one thing and not continually just say, this is the distraction because this is the only thing you care about. I mean, I remember this has always been a thing before Epstein. It was, whatever your pet cause was. I remember going to protests in the early 2000s during, George Bush's, monstrous regime. And every single time it was somebody screaming about, rightfully, I don't want to be like rightfully, about Mumia, being in jail wrongly. And it was just like, this is what this is. It's a distraction from this. There was always something that something was a distraction from something else, of like whatever the pet cause. And again, not downplaying what people's pet causes are. My pet cause has always been, covering voter suppression and police violence. And so the idea that the Epstein files, this mass network of pedophiles, isn't an important story is not something I would ever say. But like, we need to be able to, focus on more than one thing at one time, because otherwise this is what I forget what the phrase is. Basically just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And it was a phrase that the Trump administration uses, but and just throw things, and like, people continue. That's why he still posts on, about football, and then everybody distracts, gets focused on that for a second, because unfortunately, the mainstream media, the cable networks, have this inability. I think that when we talk about it's a distraction, we're really talking about like MSNBC and CNN, is that if Donald Trump says something, on Truth Social, that becomes the day, still becomes, the news of the day. And that's the only thing that any of the panels of, supposed media experts and political experts talk about. And that's it. But, thankfully we don't live in a world. There's people with 1 million Substacks. There's people, you can get your news media in 1 million different places. You can get your news media at the Santita Jackson show. You can get you can get it all different places. So, we need to, build that network and not rely off of media operations that do have that lone focus of like, Donald Trump tweeted this bad thing. And which is, again, not something that we should not pay attention to. When Donald Trump does an unbelievably racist rant about Somali citizens, Somali Americans, and Americans that are Somali, that should have been the end of his presidency. I mean, like that rant that he did, that vile, disgusting, bigoted rant, should have been, anybody else did anything like that, that should have been the end of their career, and they should have been booted out. But for some reason, I mentioned it to some people and they're like, oh yeah, when did that happen? Oh yeah, that was a couple weeks ago. But like I talked to somebody from CARE, the Council for American Islam Relations, in Minneapolis the other day, and he was just like, yeah, that it's unbelievable how the attacks on Muslims have increased, and that's saying something. Have in the last couple months, in the attacks and the focused attacks that Donald Trump and the right-wing live streamers and things like that have happened. I mean, that's another thing that people, that all of this has kind of gotten pushed aside. Even here in Norfolk, we had a graffiti, somebody spray painted crosses all across the mosque here, leaving, with the meaning of a hateful message, using the cross as a hateful message against Muslims. And so we have to multitask. It's like I used to say, like, yes, we can multitask using Obama's phrase. Yes, we see se puede multitask. I don't know how you can't speak Spanish, but it's just like, yes, we can. We multitask. We need to. Otherwise, we're going to just collapse under the weight of everything.
Well, John Virgin agrees with you. He says, no, we need to look at both. We need to look at everything at one time. Because you know what? I tell you, the great thing, if you just keep on living, you see that you get information when you are able to handle it. I just believe that God is so generous that you don't get information that you're not prepared to handle. You don't. You get it just when you can handle it. And that is the beauty of life. And so I think that Americans, we have to grow up now. It's time. It's been 250 years. We are no longer the new kids on the block. We are technically, other people have had civilizations. But that's what Gore Vidal said. His appointment in America is that we chose empire when we could have been ambitious for, he said we should have been ambitious for civilization, but we chose empire. So what are we going to do, everybody? Zach Roberts, we thank you for your courage and your work. You have a home here on this show. And there's so much that there's a lot of work that we've got to do. Everyone, the independent media is where you're getting the best news. Follow Zach Roberts on Substack. Every place that he is, you need to follow him. Check him out on Status Quo News, because they're going to send him someplace else. They've got to.
Just don't follow me in the streets, please. That gets a little weird, but yeah.
No, but I can't wait. And I can't wait for you. I hope you can get down to Selma with us.
Yes, I hope so too.
There's a lot to do and see down there. I mean, certainly Brian Stevenson's lynching museum is worth the trip. It is something that you've got to see. But to be down there, because so many people will be there. It's a pilgrimage my father made when it was not popular to do. He went every year. He never missed a year. This will be the first year he's missed since 1965. And so we are going. And everybody just give Zach your prayers and give him your support.
Thank you.
Become an official follower on Substack. Freedom is not free, everybody. This costs. It really, really does. When you look at corporate media, when you look at legacy media and you see the commercials, you see who pays them. And that's why you get what you get. So please, the real story about Minneapolis and the Epstein files and the child trafficking and all of that, we're getting from independent media. So this is one of the best at it. There's no one better. Zach D. Roberts, everybody. I am Santita Jackson, and can't wait to be with you on the next Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Much love.